Why? And that's a very serious question. Why is it so hard to have proper HDR in games? Okay, so let me show you what I'm talking about. When you start or when you continue the game, this is the loading screen, what you get when you play the game in SDR. No black level rays, and you have this very colorful but subtle colorful loading screen. And this is the loading screen what you get when you play the game in HDR. Black level rays, and there is no colorful background on the loading screen. Even if I'm reducing my brightness from my LG CX 65-inch to 40, which brings me the perfect OLED black back, there is still no colorful background on the loading screen. If I'm looking very closely, I can see some sort of the same screen as in SDR, but again, there is something missing. HDR mastering in this game is not really perfect. Okay, so before we continue talking about black level rays in this game, let's start talking about the basics in this game. So first of all, I'm testing this game on the Xbox Series X because it is on Game Pass. I just briefly played it on the PC, but as I found, or my experience was, there is no native HDR support in the PC version, Game Pass PC version, okay? I haven't played this game on the PlayStation 5 so far, so I can't verify if there is the same issue with black level rays on the PlayStation 5 as well. Right now, I'm just talking about the Xbox Series X. Also, and this counts for many other games as well, Life is Strange True Colors does not support the HDR calibration menu on the Xbox Series X, and again, I'm not quite sure about the PlayStation 5 version. So let's talk about the available picture settings in terms of picture brightness, HDR in Life is Strange True Colors. And what we have is Gamma and we have HDR settings. And I think we're starting with Gamma. So what you can't see on your screen at the moment because my camera can't catch this, but this screen is for adjusting the Gamma setting in the game. And you have actually in the SDR picture mode, at least you have actually, if you do it in a complete wrong way, you have 3 guitars here, okay? So at the moment I can't see actually, or I barely can't see the guitars here because everything is too bright, but those settings what I have chosen here right now are actually very nice. And I will of course share my settings with you in a second, because the factory settings, let's say it like this, the standard setting in this game are just terrible dark, okay? So let's move on to the HDR settings, and please do not copy and paste those values at the moment. I have chosen a brighter brightness actually to make it a little bit more suitable for my camera, okay? So anyway, we have brightness and we have contrast, and the thing is, I haven't found actually any slider where we can adjust the maximum peak brightness, because this brightness setting is not really maximum peak brightness. And this brings me already to my analysis for this game, or for this video actually. And we're talking about another episode why you shouldn't trust HDR settings in game at all, because right now if we have a very quick look on this test picture what I analyzed, and those settings at the moment are actually the standard factory settings, okay? And right now the game is trying to output 3000 nits, okay? 3000 nits on this test pattern, okay? So when we now just closing the menu and we going into the gameplay, actually the game now is just asking to output 976 candela. So again, a very good example why internal test pattern or test pictures in game sometimes completely wrong. So let's move on to the maximum peak brightness in this game. What I found is 1000 nits, okay? So I haven't found any scenario, any very bright specular highlight which actually is much brighter than 1000 nits, okay? So let me just show you this here with my recommended settings. And I have to say that the HDR effects in this game, they are rare, but very nice actually. I mean, we need to agree, you are not playing this game because of HDR, okay? But again, HDR with the right settings is actually looking very, very nice. So at this very moment, with my recommended settings, the game likes to output 900, almost 1000 nits, okay? And I agree, it's a little bit too much for the HGiG, but it does look good. And anyway, I'm coming to the point, and I will share my recommended settings, of course, with you in a second. So even I'm cranking up the brightness like crazy in the HDR settings menu, I don't have anything higher than 1000 nits. At this very moment, 10,026 nits is the absolutely maximum what I was able to find during the whole game. So it looks to me that really the game is capped at 1000 nits, which is not bad because this fits actually the HGiG or other TVs very well. And yes, I agree again, it is a little bit too much, but again, HDR does look great, okay? Especially HGiG, to be very honest. Dynamic tone mapping on is also not bad. Dolby Vision, yeah, also. Okay, let's have a look on this picture. And those picture was taken, or I analyzed this picture with the factory settings in terms of brightness and contrast, okay? And right now the game likes to output 554 nits, which is a little bit too less at this very moment, because I found with my recommended setting, I can have actually almost close to 700 nits. And I'm very sure I have the picture here somewhere else, maybe here. That's the one, 758. I'm very sure you can't see anything here because it's just too bright. Let's try this one here. But this very nice bright sun here now with 758 nits with my recommended settings, and it really does look great. Okay, so let's move on and let's talk about my recommended settings for HDR10 in Life is Strange. And by the way, this is the very first game where I would not recommend to use Dolby Vision, and I'm going to explain this to you a little bit later. Okay, so let's start with dynamic tone mapping on, and brightness setting is +4. And by the way, I do not touch the contrast setting in this game at all because I found contrast in the factory setting is more than good in my opinion, okay? But if you like to have a little bit more of a vivid color picture, then just increase contrast by maybe +1 or +2. I wouldn't go further actually. And keep in mind, if you increase contrast, you also lose some, maybe very fine details and very dark objects, okay? So keep this in mind, okay? Anyway, dynamic tone mapping on, brightness +4, for HGiG +6. And why do we have two different brightness settings is very easy to explain. The average picture brightness in dynamic tone mapping on is always, or in most of the cases, let's say like this, brighter than HGiG, and that's why I decided to have a little bit less brightness set in the game compared to HGiG, because with +6 for dynamic tone mapping on, I just found it is a little bit too much, okay? So keep in mind, in terms of the maximum peak brightness, there is not really a difference between dynamic tone mapping on or HGiG, okay? Because the TV is just capable of, let's say, maximum 700 candela, and both modes, dynamic tone mapping on and HGiG, can display maximum 700 candela, okay? It is just how HDR actually gets displayed on the screen, and in many cases, dynamic tone mapping on has a higher average picture brightness compared to HGiG. And now, very important is the brightness setting on the HGiG. In my case, the 65-inch version, and I had to decrease the brightness setting from 50, which is the standard factory setting, to 40 to have no elevated black levels in this game, okay? So also keep in mind, when you decrease the setting here, you have to adjust the gamma setting, because otherwise you end up with a terrible dark picture. But the advantage is that even increasing gamma to the maximum, we wouldn't have any elevated black levels. We would just have a very too bright picture actually. So that's why my recommendation is gamma +10, maximum +15. It depends if you play in a very dark room or in a very bright room, okay? So in my case, I like the setting +10 because when I'm playing, I play almost in a very complete pitch black room, okay? But if you have a little bit of a brighter environment, maybe +15 is the right choice. But again, keep in mind, those two values are actually working together. You don't like to have the factory setting on the HGiG brightness setting set to 50, and you like to increase the gamma setting plus 10 or plus 15, because this will just give you a very, very bright picture, a very high gamma actually, and it doesn't look good at all. Okay, so keep in mind, decrease the brightness on the HGiG and increase the gamma setting in the game. Okay, so let me show you how to set up HDR in Life is Strange True Colors, because it is very important that you follow all the steps, okay, to have the best HDR experience. And by the way, I still recommend HDR over SDR in this game, even with the crazy black level rays, because we can actually fix this, okay? So this, or what you can see here right now, video settings, we have here the reset to default. But keep in mind, this button is really just resetting what you can see here on the screen, on the main screen, and also the gamma setting, okay? Now you can see gamma setting is cranked up to maximum, which is completely wrong, by the way. But when we go to reset to default, it is back to factory setting, okay? So this reset to default on the main screen is not resetting the HDR settings, okay? There's a separate reset to default, okay? So this is, by the way, right now, what you can see, the absolute standard setting in this game, which is ridiculous. Yeah, just too dark, way too dark. Okay, so let's just move on and go to brightness. And even now, my TV is set to brightness 50, which is wrong in this game because we have a lot of black level rays right now. So what we're doing now, we're going to settings, we're going to video, and we start with gamma, okay? So before you set now anything in terms of gamma, make sure you don't have any elevated black level on this screen, okay? And this is very simple to check. Just make sure the room is completely dark and you just decrease the brightness as long you can't see any black level rays anymore, okay? So in my case for the HGiG, it's around 40, maybe 41. I'm not quite sure about this, but I'll leave it to 40 because it's just a better number. Anyway, and now we increasing the gamma plus 10, maximum plus 15, okay? So plus 10 if you play in a complete dark room, and plus 15 if you have a little bit of a brighter environment, okay? I'm not counting at the moment. I think this is around 10 or whatever, okay? So plus 10 from the factory settings, maximum plus 15 for the gamma setting, okay? Okay, and now we're talking about the HDR brightness setting in Life is Strange True Colors. And again, I am not touching contrast at all because I'm quite happy with the contrast. But if you think you need to have a little bit of a more vivid color, because this is actually what is happening, and of course you lose a lot of details in the dark areas, then go for it. Increase or decrease contrast as you like it, but I wouldn't do it too much, okay? Maximum 2 clicks plus or minus is the absolutely maximum what I like to do, what I would do. And in this case, just plus 2 clicks, okay? Minus 2 clicks will just give you less color, and it doesn't look good anymore. Anyway, in my opinion, contrast setting to factory is exactly what I like to have. In terms of brightness, dynamic tone mapping on +4, for HGiG, and Dolby Vision +6. And why we have two different settings is because dynamic tone mapping on has a brighter average picture compared to HGiG and Dolby Vision. And if I'm using dynamic tone mapping on with setting +6, I think it is a little bit too much, okay? It is just a little bit too bright. That's my opinion, okay? That's why I choose actually +4 for dynamic tone mapping on and +6 for HGiG. And as always, it is absolutely up to you if you like to play this game in dynamic tone mapping on or HGiG. Dynamic tone mapping off, in my opinion, is, as in 99.99% of the games, the worst choice in my opinion. So dynamic tone mapping on, the big advantage what you have is that you have an average or a higher average picture brightness, not when there are very bright objects on the screen, specular highlights, okay? Like in this case between HGiG and dynamic tone mapping on, yes, there is a difference, but it is not big, to be very honest. But if we have like a screen or whatever where there are no specular highlights, then you can actually see there is a very big difference in terms of brightness. So the disadvantage from dynamic tone mapping on is that it takes time to adjust the picture. That means when you move around, dynamic tone mapping on is analyzing the screen all the time and it is changing the brightness all the time. So dynamic tone mapping on, just one word, or let's say like this to make it very quick, is the, how should I say, not very accurate mode, or the unaccurate mode. Is this actually an English word? Anyway, let's say it like this. HGiG is the most accurate mode when it comes to HDR. And now of course we have Dolby Vision for gaming, and I have to admit I'm not a big fan for Dolby Vision in this game, because as we know, Dolby Vision is processing HDR a little bit different compared to HDR10. And also we need to keep in mind that this game does not support Dolby Vision natively. There's just one game out there on the Xbox Series X, which is called Halo Infinite. And by the way, Halo Infinite has broken HDR in Dolby Vision, okay? So no, Dolby Vision in this game is not to recommend, because what we know about Dolby Vision is that in all my testings, what I have done with Dolby Vision compared to HDR10, Dolby Vision had always a lower maximum peak brightness, and I had to increase the maximum peak brightness setting to get the same measured output on my screen. Okay, so let's, for an example, I'm measuring 700 nits for on a specular highlight in HDR10. With the same setting in Dolby Vision, I would maybe just measure 620, 650 candela. Okay, so I would need to increase the maximum peak brightness to get the same brightness, the real brightness on the screen. And this is the same here. Dolby Vision, I can clearly see there is a big difference in terms of specular highlights. This is where we're missing some maximum peak brightness to have the same appearance actually as in HDR10. But the problem is we don't have any setting where we can actually increase the maximum peak brightness, because this brightness setting is the overall brightness from the screen. And when we're increasing this even further, then we're just overblowing the picture. Okay, so right now at this very moment, Dolby Vision is not a recommendation. Okay, my friends, so that's it for this video, and I have to admit I had a lot of fun playing this game, to be very honest. I was very skeptical, because games like this where there's not much of an action, or actually there is some, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I was absolutely surprised by this game, to be very honest. And now, because I played already a couple of hours, I'm not quite sure anymore, I regret a couple of decisions what I made before in this game. And it's just amazing actually how you get into this game. You know, you get really sucked into this game, in the story. And yeah, this is actually the first part what I played actually in the Life is Strange. It's a trilogy, or we have 3 parts now, or is it? I really don't know. I played the first part back then very, very briefly, and I found, nah, I don't like this type of games, just put it away and never touch it again. And this time I actually played it because of testing, because of HDR, and I do not regret it. And because it is for free on Game Pass, I can just everybody encourage to test this game. Even you're absolutely hardcore FPS player, just give it a try. Give it a little bit, a couple of minutes, of course, to get to the story, to get used to it and stuff like that. I really, really like it. And by the way, I'm playing this game in the 30 FPS ray tracing mode, because I found yeah, this game is not a very fast game, so there's no problem with 30 FPS at all. And most of the time actually you're just listening to some dialogues, to just some intros or movie sequences and stuff like that. So 30 FPS with a higher resolution is actually the way to go in this game. Anyway, so that's enough for this video. Thank you very much as always for watching me. Please make sure you like, share and you subscribe. Okay, thank you very much. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.